Okay. We have our screens reminders for the webinar. Okay. There's a series of reminders here. We would like to have everyone, you can send questions for the Q&A to the speakers after the two presentations. For those tuned in Facebook Live, you may send in the questions in the comment section, while in Zoom, you can send them by typing it in the Q&A window. Questions would be collated and moderated to ensure their relevance to the scope of the presentations. This will also be forwarded eventually to our speakers for further consideration in their actions. The second reminder is that we will be issuing certificates of participation. Kindly answer the evaluation form, the link to which will be presented at the end of the webinar. The link will also be posted in the chat section of Zoom and in the comment section of Facebook Live. Please take note that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on UPLB's CPAf Facebook page. For other comments and suggestions for our upcoming webinars, you could email us at cpaf.cspps.uplb@upedu.ph. Okay. Okay, so a very good and blessed afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and in today's webinar entitled D Etat, Taking Over the Pandemic. I am Mayo Grace Amit, Assistant Professor of the College of Public Affairs and Development, and I will be serving as your moderator for this afternoon. So magandang hapon po sa lahat ng mga taga-Alabat, sa Imbag na Malim, Kakabsat, sa Baguio City. So, just a bit of a background. The webinar that we are having today actually follows from a series of seminars that CPAf regularly hosts through its Center for Strategic Planning and Policy Studies. And the objective of this activity is to promote public awareness on current issues on food security and sustainability, water and development, policy and institutions, and local governance. We are very thankful that despite the restrictions brought about by the pandemic, we are still able to continue this very important activity and in fact, able to reach a wider and more diverse audience. Indeed, there are very bright spots and new opportunities even in the most challenging of circumstances that we are in now. Now on its second run through the online platform, the CPAf seminar series focuses its attention on knowing and learning from the stories of various communities in coping with the new normal brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are particularly interested in this webinar series to listen to the wealth of information and wisdom of local chief executives who share the huge responsibility of keeping it together sa atin pong lahat na magkababayan. The theme for this series that we are holding online now on its second run is Walking the Talk, CPAf CSPPS webinar series in LGU governance and policy. This afternoon, we are very honored and privileged to have with us Mayor Fernando Mesa from the beautiful island municipality of Alabat, Quezon, and Mayor Benjamin Magalong from our much beloved summer capital, Baguio City. On this note, I would like to call on the Dean of CPAf, Dean Rolando Bello, to formally open the webinar. Dean Bello.
Yeah, I cannot open my video. Hindi yung
Please bear with us. These things happen. We are all learning this new way of doing things.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Magandang hapon din po kay Mayor Mesa at kay Mayor Magalong at sa inyong mga kasamahan. This webinar is one of the series of webinars sponsored by the College of Public Affairs and Development, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, highlighting the strategies employed by the local government units in managing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as their plans of action in a new normal world. While most, if not all, of the local government units were taken by surprise and overwhelmed, many took up the challenge and rose to the occasion to provide the safety nets to individuals and households, mobilize public and private resources, and forestall the overburdening of our tenuous health systems during the community quarantine. The chief local executives, down to the members of the community brigades, were our parallel frontliners who assumed enormous risks, endured numerous sacrifices while nurturing our needs despite the occasional pasaways and already overextended fiscal resources. Today, we have invited two remarkable local executives who displayed fortitude and resilience against daunting challenges, and they are Honorable Fernando L. Mesa of Alabat, Quezon, whom I had the opportunity to visit twice in that beautiful island municipality, and Honorable Benjamin B. Magalong of Baguio City, that charming city of pines. The conveying of their invaluable experiences, best practices, and lessons learned during these past few months will serve as a veritable yardstick of other local government units in their response to future pandemics and disasters. We are truly grateful for their participation, as well as to our registered participants in Zoom and other media platforms who have indicated their interest to learn and contribute to nation building. We are also thankful to the Fellowship of Christians in Government Incorporated and to the CPAf Alumni Association for the dynamic partnership to make this happen. We hope to have you in our ensuing webinars as we endeavor to pursue our public service mandate in these trying times. Keep safe, and may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
Okay, thank you, Dean Bello. So before we proceed, I would like to remind again our participants to this webinar to please post your Q&A, post your question in the Q&A box for Zoom and the chat boxes in Facebook. The members of the Secretariat are taking note of your questions. So let's proceed. Our first speaker, Mayor Fernando Mesa, is on his third term as local chief executive in the municipality of Alabat, Quezon. Prior to his stint as local chief executive, Mayor Mesa had a full and prolific career in the armed forces of the Philippines, where he served as defense and military attaché abroad in France, Germany, and Spain. He was also the first internal auditor of the AFP, commanding general of the 2nd Infantry Division, commander of the National Capital Region, and the Assistant Secretary of the National Security Council. When he retired from the military, he went on to serve the people of Alabat as its local chief executive. His dedicated service has been lauded for enabling the town to flourish through the various economic activities that made a huge difference for its people. He continues to rally people, policy, and resources for his constituency by strengthening the fundamentals of local governance in his town. The successful adoption of the town's executive and legislative agenda in October last year is just among the hallmarks of his leadership. As a public official, he has been the recipient of a number of accolades, which includes, among others, Bayanika Award by the DSWD, Dangal ng Bayan Award from the Civil Service Commission, the Cavalier Award for Public Administration among his peers from the Philippine Military Academy Alumni Association Incorporated, Lingkod Calabarzon, Award of the Regional Development Council of Calabarzon, and the Outstanding Local Chief Executive of the Association of Local Social Welfare and Development Officers of the Philippines Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome and learn from Mayor Fernando Mesa of Alabat, Quezon.
Magandang hapon po sa inyo. Good afternoon. Sa ating pong Dean, Rolando L of CPAf, and Director Maylin Paunlagi of the Director of CSPPS, Ma'am Grace Amit, to everyone, and of course to my friend Mayor Magalong, good afternoon. Allow me to discuss the strategies employed by LGU, Alabat. Allow me to discuss the strategies employed by LGU, Alabat in managing the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. But let me show you where is Alabat. It is almost 250 kilometers away from Metro Manila and an island municipality. The island is composed of 3 municipalities of Alabat, Perez, and Quezon, with a population of almost 50,000, land area of almost 18,000, and 12,000 of which is planted with coconut. As an additional background there, for you to understand us, we have the Alabat Development Framework. Our mission is to uplift the quality of life of family, o itaas ang antas ng pamumuhay ng pamilya. And our vision is to have a mapayapa, maunlad, maganda at masayang bayan ng Diyos. A sustainably developed municipality of Alabat, municipality of the Lord. Our challenges are basically on health, on livelihood, on values formation, but we have our meager resources on people, land, and water. And therefore, to accomplish our mission and vision, we've got to have programs on the improvement of the health of population, improvement of the level of literacy and spirituality, improvement of economic condition, peaceful and orderly areas, and cross-cutting concerns on actions for good governance, love, integrity, and excellence in public service, assurance of strategic public-private partnership, best practices in crisis and disaster management, advocacy for ecologically sound environment, and tie-ups and linkages with government institutions. So concerning COVID situation, we had our enhanced community quarantine from March 16 to May 15. And then GCQ from May 16 to June 20. And on that date, we had our first case of COVID. Then the national government declared June 21 to June 30 as modified enhanced community quarantine. But the municipality requested that we be declared from general community quarantine to modified enhanced community quarantine because of COVID cases. And we had our first death of who had a COVID case but died due to severe asthma and TB. And then 2 days after, we had 3 new COVID cases, local transmission. But on July 1, we had the first recovery of a COVID patient. And then right now, we are on a modified general community quarantine. We had additional case of COVID, patient 6 on July 5. And come July 11, we have our patient 3 and 5 fully recovered. And while patient 4 and 6 were negative with their latest swab results, and awaiting for the next result of the hopefully negative also. What are our challenges? Alabat is a fifth-class municipality, and therefore we have budgetary constraint. We have inadequate number of personnel, and the Alabat Island District Hospital that caters to the whole island is a level 3 hospital with only one doctor and limited healthcare workers. It has a 25-bed capacity for non-COVID patients and 5 for COVID patients. So part of our strategies, first is the activation of the incident command system, wherein we had our municipal interagency task force on the 15th of March. Second, we have to keep our population healthy and the economy moving. Ang sabi ko nga po, kinakailangan ang ating mga mamamayan ay malusog na ay magkaroon ng malusog na pamilya pero may pera sa bulsa. And so we dedicated the 1-month era and realigned funds from our 30% development fund and the DRM fund for COVID preparedness and response purposes. Substantial portion of that we use for welfare goods and the like. The LGU buys the local farmers producers from local farmers and producers to keep the economy moving. Also, agri products keep unhampered and enhanced. The local government did not purchase processed and canned goods, but we received donations from government and private institutions and individuals, which were distributed to the people as well. Another strategy is that we organize and train 281, mostly women, for the so-called village level coconut oil mill. We produce blended coconut oil, cooking oil for use of household, and it becomes part of our food assistance. And also, it provided additional source of income to our people. Another is we made use of tupad of DOLE, the tulong panghanap buhay sa ating disadvantaged workers in the disinfectation of all barangays. Also in our corporate farming to utilize idle and underutilized lands. Of course, we have the SAP from DSWD. And also, just recently, we were advised by the DSWD that we will be a recipient of Kapit Pisig Laban sa Kahirapan Comprehensive and Integrated Delivery of Social Services National Community-Driven Development Program, Kalahi Seeds in CBDP, which is an organ for disaster response operation modality and procedure, a platform that speeds up post-disaster recovery and rehabilitation caused by COVID. On protocols, all patients coming from other hospitals are quarantined at isolation facilities in Alabat Central Elementary School as an extension of the Alabat Island District Hospital. It's just and other friends. Also, all LSIs, or locally stranded individuals from COVID-19 positive areas are quarantined in separate isolation facilities like Alabat Island National High School, barangay health centers, barangay community centers, barangay school buildings. We have our evacuation center also, which we use for the isolation of direct contact for positive cases. And all LSIs from negative areas were asked to go on strict home quarantine. Also, drivers and helpers of construction and food delivery vehicles were asked to stay in isolation facility upon arrival in Alabat. And of course, authorized persons outside of residence or APOR are required to observe minimum health protocol and allowed to perform only their official tasks. On contact tracing, the teams are composed of health workers as team leader, with their members coming from the Philippine National Police, Bureau 5, in DRMO, and of course, barangay officials. Our tracing were up to 4th level of contacts, and direct contacts of positive patients were isolated, while contacts of direct contacts up to the 4th level were subjected to strict home quarantine, and they were all provided with food assistance. Alabat Island District Hospital preparedness. Way back on March 13, they set up an isolation area for possible COVID-19 patients. Also had a triaging in emergency rooms and ambulance preparedness for to handle COVID-19 case. And on June 1, they also set up triads in Atimonan and entry point to Alabat via ferry. And prepared also the Alabat Central Elementary School as isolation facility for possible COVID-19 patients. Likewise, we received personal PPEs from DOH on March 26 and 29, from the provincial government on June 9 and 27, and last July 10 from Camp Aguinaldo from the national government. Also, the AIDH had separate team for COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 patients, and the COVID teams were divided further into two, one for direct management of COVID-19 patients and the other for activities outside of AIDH, like swabbing of and checkup of COVID-19 suspects. We likewise organized volunteers for security and sanitation of isolation facilities. Other strategies, we organized help desk at the municipal hall. It is a one-stop shop for assistance to source needs of Alabatin not available in the island, especially during early stage of the declaration of ECQ. And we also assist, this desk also assists kababayans living or stranded in other areas, getting in touch with their counterparts, the WD, up to the barangay level, and so on and so forth. They also connect with the LSI in need of assistance, connect them to our kababayan who are near and who have the capability to help. Also, all the barangays organize their own rural barangay help desk. And at the borders, we set up checkpoints as well. We also encourage live streaming of masses and other religious activities. We have our daily Bible study at the municipal hall, even during the quarantine period. And I have our weekly Bible study with Leadership of Quezon Government Board online. We have our periodic meetings of the MIATF with barangay captains and tracing teams were conducted likewise for situational updates and united actions. The outcome of our efforts. First, no constituents of us complained of hunger. The local government received few complaints of being left out in relief and other government assistance, and they are immediately acted upon. Second, our constituents received healthy food assistance, such as vegetables, pork, fresh cat's fish, cocoa sugar, virgin coconut oil, chili powder, crackers, rice, and eggs that were bought from our farmers and distributed to all households. There were cases when vegetable farming increased in such that some people who planted the vegetables refuses to accept vegetables assistance. Also, from the discovery of one COVID positive patient, the contact tracing teams were able to identify 148 families or 687 individuals from 14 barangays out of 19, and were either put in strict home quarantine or isolation and provided with food assistance during quarantine. Now, all of 148 families are cleared. And as of July 11, of the 97 individuals who were swabbed, 95 are cleared, and 2 are all got a negative result also, just awaiting for the negative result of the second swab. Another account is the food production of farmers, fisher folks, hog raisers were unhampered while on community quarantine. The LGU bought their produce and distributed to all households as food assistance. And we help them also in marketing. Fifth, we have a new product, virgin coconut coffee oil is born. This is an additional source of income that we created at the barangay level, especially for women. And they underwent training on the so-called village level coconut oil mill production. 6, the people became innovative in food production and online selling. From March 15 to June 19, Alabat was COVID-free. We have our PUM, or person under monitoring, on strict quarantine, supervised by our barangay health emergency response team. And the POIs, or persons under investigations, were managed by the hospital. But on June 20, the first COVID-19 was recorded. The patient came from hospital in the mainland that caters COVID-19 cases. To prevent the recurrence of the incident, the provincial health officer issued a memo directing all hospitals that patients for discharge should undergo swab test to be sure that they are COVID-19 negative. Our conclusions. First, the incident command system works. Plans and action concerning 5 P's of crisis management, which are predict, prepare, prevent, perform, and post-action and assessment were in place. Second, COVID-19 cases were well managed. The chain of the spread of COVID-19 was cut off due to protocols instituted. Hence, probable and suspect cases were identified and isolated. Within 21 days from the discovery of the first 19 case, we are back to COVID-free municipality. Third, despite of limited personnel and resources of the hospital, it was able to manage COVID-19 cases. Fourth, the strong partnership of LGU Alabat and Alabat Island District Hospital contributed in no small way for a collective approach in managing the threat of COVID-19. Fifth, the economy remains dynamic. 6, spirituality keep active. 7, immune system of constituents was believed to have been boosted with the nutritious food assistance. 8, the task force and the AID's members and volunteers are all dedicated to their duty, hardworking, and inspired. People are cooperative, except of course for a few who were where we filed cases against them with the so-called pasaway. 9, nobody panic. Everything is under control by the local government unit. People are confident knowing contacts of COVID-19 positive were isolated. Because of intensive and extensive contact tracing, LGU isolated all families with contact to COVID-19 positive patients. 10, Bayanihan funds from the national government and anti-poverty programs help us a lot. And most of all, we believe that God has been guiding us to be prepared and manage the impact of pandemic in our municipality. To God be the glory.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Mesa. Thank you for sharing the experience of Alabat in rising above this challenge that we are now confronting. It's standing out from the presentation how the local government has fully orchestrated its machinery and was able to organize many strategies and activities despite, as was said in the presentation, the resource constraints, which were the very critical aspects of how we can move things forward. So the presentation only showed that even with the very limited resources that they had with the LGU, collaborative mechanisms in place, with the people being part of the recovery activities, they were able to help each other face the challenges. And right now, still, the LGU is together with the people organizing all these things together. So, for questions for Mayor Mesa, please hold on to them for now. Again, maybe remind everybody that questions, the Q&A box and the chat box for Facebook Live, they're open for receiving questions from Those who are listening to this webinar, they will be answered later on. So we move on to the next speaker. So our second speaker is Mayor Benjamin Magalong of Baguio City. He is a retired Police Director General, was over 38 years of service in the Philippine National Police. He is currently on his first term as Mayor of Baguio City, and among his platforms are responsible tourism, revitalizing the environment, effective traffic management, and expanding health and social services. Mayor Magalong is lauded for his uncompromising integrity. He is respected for being an advocate of honesty and truth and mindful of the risks to his career and personal life. A highly respected and former officer of the PNP, a recipient of the Presidential Lingkod Bayan Award, ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome and learn from Mayor Magalong of Baguio City.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Mayor Grace, Dean Rolando, and Sir Mayor Mesa of Alabat. Kumusta po kayo, sir? Alam niyo, na-under ako kay Mayor Mesa noon when we were crafting the National Crisis Manual. A lot of people are asking, I just received the official message that I will be heading the National Contact Tracing program of the government. So that was officially announced this afternoon, and a lot of people are asking how would it impact my work as mayor of the city of Baguio. And I just would like to say that this is a welcome development, because we should understand that economies of various regions and cities are always interdependent, and we have to work together. We have to work as one to be able to heal as one. That is actually the philosophy that we need to follow. Just like, for example, the city of Baguio, our tourism industry is heavily reliant on tourists coming from NCR, Region 3, Region 4. In fact, there was a survey last year wherein we were able to determine that 49.38% of our tourists actually come from this region. In the same manner that we provide, Baguio City provides almost 68% of the vegetable requirement of Region 3, NCR, and Region 4. And if we will not be able to manage our COVID-19 situations, then definitely it will also impact our economy. And so, as I've said, keep on saying, it will be an added stress, pero kailangan po talaga nating magtulungan. Well, anyway, let me now share with you our best practice on contact tracing. Nababasa niyo na po ba yung aming screen? Ma'am Mayo, okay na po ba yung aming screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you po. This is our contact tracing methodology, and before I proceed, I just would like to emphasize here that we look at contact tracing as very, very similar to investigation of criminal offenses. And I'm particularly referring to serial offenses, like serial rapist, serial killer. If you look at the dynamics of that particular crime, iba-ibang mga biktima. Same with COVID-19. Ibang biktima po ang nai-infect. So halos pareho po ang dynamics. And that's the reason why I finally decided that what we have in the Philippine National Police, what systems do we have in the National Police, can we use? Can we use in enhancing the investigation of COVID-19 cases? And that's the way I look at COVID-19 from the perspective of an investigator or law enforcer. This is our conceptual framework, and it is aligned with the overall strategy of our national task force. First, we identify, then we isolate, we test, and we trace. let me present to you our incident management workflow every time we have a positive case in the city of Baguio. A lot of people are saying, siguro Baguio, kukunti lang positive cases ano, because you have an effective contact tracing. No, we don't. In fact, if you look at Baguio, it has a population of 375. Our floating population is around 600 to 680,000. When the tourist arrives, we go as high as around 900,000. And we only have a 57 square kilometer land area. So rural setting wise, we are probably one of the dense cities outside of Metro Manila at 12,000 persons or individuals per square kilometer. That's a bit dense. Ano? Some parts of NCR are actually 15,000, 16,000. So we're relatively dense. So isa sa mga problema rin ho namin dito is a lot of tourists come up to the city of Baguio. In fact, the latest survey made by the Department of Tourism is that we are one of the top 3 destinations in the country. Every time we so right now we have a total of 53 cases. 5 were confined. In fact, last week we only have 1 confined individual or patient. And then for the next few days, last days, halos araw-araw po nagkakaroon po kami ng case because this is a consequence of opening up our economy, and it's basically happening elsewhere, except for this municipality siguro ni Mayor Mesa. Well, anyway, ganun ho talaga ang trend ngayon. In fact, this lunchtime, nagkaroon po ng briefing ang National Task Force, si Secretary Roque, and readily, the government has admitted that talagang there's a surge in COVID-19 cases in basically all parts of the country. And second is severe cases and critical cases are increasing. So going back to the incident management workflow, once we have a positive patient, our contact tracing team immediately acquires the personal circumstances and interviews the positive patient. And after that, the contact tracing is immediately launched. Meanwhile, I order the initial lockdown of the barangay, and we were going to assess that for the next 3 days. Pagka-lockdown ko, action na kagad ang Philippine National Police. In most cases, I personally talk to the patient. In several cases, I personally delivered the sad news that he is COVID-19 positive. Now, after that, delivering that, after talking to him, making her calm down, I ask his cooperation if it is possible that he can disclose his identity or her identity in public. The reason for that is once they divulge their identity, although this is a controversial issue because of the Privacy Act, we are able to accomplish almost 30% of contact tracing. So once she agrees or they agree, our PIO called them and then they help them craft a post. Kasi syempre, hindi makapag-isip kagad kung ano isusulat niya o ipopost niya. We allow them to read an undertaking. There's a 2-page undertaking, affidavit of undertaking, and one of the critical lines in that undertaking is, I want to save more lives and I want to protect more lives. So pag pumayag na ho, i-craft namin, tutulungan namin i-craft yung kanyang post, and then he posts it or they post it in their own personal social media account. Simultaneously, these are the bodies that we have a Viber group, automatic na po yung pagpapadala ng message sa kanila, and then our CDRRMO immediately conducts decontamination. Ito pong sistema na to, halos in place na po yan. So I don't really have to order each and every department or division to launch its own task. Ito po, automatic na po yan. Once na nagkaroon na po ng information that there's a positive patient, everybody acts. Now, let me go to the basic principle of our contact tracing, and we have crafted this based on our personal experiences. There should be a seamless collaboration between law enforcement, investigators, and health authorities. During our third or first 3 weeks of ECQ, first 3 weeks po yan. If you remember, ang nagkakandak lang po ng contact tracing are health authorities. And they have this form, they fill out the form. Magtatanong ko sila, fill in the blank. Sila. And when we were doing our contact tracing seminar or conferences every week, nare-realize po na ang dami pong gaps, ang dami pong misses. And then I explained to them that, you know, being a contact tracer requires someone with an investigative mindset. So I brought in the law enforcement investigators, primarily coming from the Philippine National Police. And one of the skills that I introduced to them was cognitive interviewing skills. This is a skill that I introduced when I was in CIGG. And we have trained more or less about 80 personnel on this. And what does cognitive interviewing is all about? Babanggitin ko po yan sa inyo when I go to principle number 3. But I saw the need for a strong partnership between investigators and health authorities. One cannot stand alone. One cannot do it alone. Law enforcement investigators, when they conduct investigations, sabi ng Philippine National Police, when I attended the command conference to talk about contact tracing, sabi niya, kaya na namin sir mag-isa. And I told them, you cannot. You don't have the capacity or capability to determine who are high risk, who are low risk, who are moderate risk. Hindi nyo malaman kung sino yung mode of interaction nila. You cannot. You don't have the capability to evaluate. And so finally, they realized na hindi talaga nila kaya. So both investigators and health worker complement each other. Noon, nung pinapakita namin sa aming health workers yung kanilang amount of information na nagagather, it turned out na mga 25 to 30% lang nilang nakukuha. We're not aiming for 100%, but we're aiming for about 70 to 80%. And when the investigators join the contact tracer from health authority or health workers, it turned out na halos nare-reach na po namin 70 to 80%. And no less than the doctors and nurses would say na iba pala talaga pag law enforcement investigators ang involved sa investigation. Next is transparency, speed are indispensable. I would like to emphasize this phrase, every second counts and not every day matters. Transparency, and that's the reason why talagang we are doing our best to convince individuals who are positive to divulge their identity in public. We're not violating the Privacy Act. Why? Because we allow them to read yung undertaking, affidavit of undertaking, even the consequences binabasa rin namin sa kanila. But in spite of that, almost 60% to 70% agreed to divulge their identity in public. There are only 3 reasons na hesitant yung mga positive patients to divulge their identity. One is they lied. Nagsinungaling sila during the interview na wala silang travel abroad. Second is meron silang skeleton sa closet. Probably their personality, their character, or their relationship. And number 3 is they don't want to lose their client. Therefore, forgive me if there are doctors around in this virtual meeting. Isa po sa pinakamahirap na i-convincing mag-divulge na identity yung mga lawyers po at mga doctors. Pasensya na po kayo. Again, I would like to emphasize, yung speed, kailangan po mabilisan talaga. But you have to balance it. Speed versus pressuring the COVID-positive patient to talk. Dapat kailangan the positive patient or the person giving out the information should be very, very comfortable in giving out the information. Otherwise, if you pressure them, most probably they will be showing signs of deception, and they will develop a sense of animosity toward each other. Third is cognitive interviewing skill is key to efficient collection of information. Alam niyo itong cognitive interviewing skill is, imagine a positive patient who just received information that he is infected with COVID-19. Anong nararamdaman po niya? We call it the general arousal syndrome in crisis negotiation. What happens when he's experiencing GAS, general arousal syndrome? He's irrational, he's confused, he's thinking of his family, iniisip rin niya kung mabubuhay siya o hindi. And then suddenly here comes someone asking, sino yung mga nakausap ka? Saan ka nagpupunta? And can you just imagine yung pressure sa kanya? Immediately, magbibuild siya ng wall around him or around her. So that is what a cognitive interviewing investigator skill. Someone who has that skill, he breaks that wall, but at the same time establishing rapport relationship, getting the trust and confidence of that positive patient. And at the same time, helping that positive patient recall incidents that actually happened. Why I'm so emphasizing actually happened. Marami po kasing kaso na talagang nagsisinungaling, halatang nagsisinungaling yung ibang mga pasyente, especially pag tinanong mo, meron po ba kayong foreign travel? So these are the things that, the reasons why we need someone to have that skill, special skill in interview. Okay, the use of technology, it's about time that, in our contact tracing system, we have to use technology. You should understand that we are processing big data. And our human brain cannot process that. Cannot process that. Only technology can process it. Successful contact tracing is highly dependent on the quality of information. When we were introduced to computers about 30 years ago, or more than that, ang laging sinasabi nung professor natin is garbage in, garbage out. So, importante po sa contact tracing, dapat quality of information. Just like in the battlefield, we always talk about situational awareness, knowing the situation on the ground. Pero if you are processing flawed data, mali-maling information, nagtataguan ng information, hindi talaga sinasabi, walang transparency, itinatago yung number of positive patient, tinatago pa yung number of death, then your decisions are eventually also flawed. So these are the consequences of that. Next is, there's no substitute to being proactive. Bakit ko pina-emphasize to? I don't want them to learn or to experience what we have experienced in PNP, or probably, in Baguio or in Cebu, na habang ini-establish pa lang yung kanilang contact tracing capability, ang dami-dami ng kaso. Napakahirap po. I suggest, and I strongly suggest, that habang mas maaga pa, wala pa ho kayong kaso o kukunti pa lang, start building up your contact tracing capability. Second to the last is local chief executives play a major role in contact tracing. What I observe in other municipalities, local government is medyo nakadetach yung mayor. At may intervening na layer. May ibang layer na nandito na nagmamanage. So in most cases, ang natatanggap lang na information ng local chief executive, yung magagandang information. They are afraid to provide him information about certain critical issues that is actually or that are actually affecting or impacting yung contact tracing nila. I saw that, believe me. Marami ring insidente na dapat ang mayor ang pwede lang mag-resolve ng mga certain issues like non-cooperation of barangay officials dahil kaaway nila yung administrasyon, hindi nakikipag-cooperate yung barangay. Ang dami-dami ng kaso, ayaw pa rin. Lockdown, naggagawa pa rin, pumapayag pa rin yung mga barangay official na magkaroon pa ng party, magkaroon pa ng procession, magkaroon pa ng crowd-drawing events. Sometimes budget an issue. Ang paghihingi na ng mga equipment o kailangan ng mga ganitong gamit, ang sasabihin ng budget officer o yung GSO, kailangan pa ng bidding. Can you just imagine? These are extraordinary times and requires extraordinary action or solution. That's where the local chief executive can come in. Just say, hindi na, bumili na tayo dyan. Itong pwede mong gamitin pera o itong discretionary fund ang pwede mong gamitin. So it's fast. Speed is a major factor, and local chief executives should look at things with a sense of urgency. Yan po yan. And at the same time, their leadership should be felt during this during this pandemic, especially in the aspect of contact tracing. And finally, extensive testing is critical to contact tracing. And I will be showing to you a case study, case analysis, basically, case analysis of CEBU. Last week, I went to CEBU on the request of General Pero dahil talagang run away po yung kanilang rate of infection. Every day, tumataas po siya. When I went there last week, nasa 130 na po sila daily. Hindi ayos ang pagre-report ng mga infection. Kulang po yun. Hindi na pa nire-report lahat. Second is, hindi rin nire-report yung mga death. Lahat. Itinatago ang kanilang data. So this is now I'm sorry, it's not a case study, but a case analysis. The average number of daily infections in Cebu City is 130. Look at this. The number of swab tests conducted daily is 400. That was the report given by the health office. Pero I verified it. I tried to validate it. And finally, yesterday, dumating na yung katotohanan na only 270 swab tests are being conducted daily. Okay. Number of F1 contacted or contact traced within 24 hours per patient. They cannot determine. They cannot determine. But glaringly, ang kinocontact trace lang nila is household members lang. In short, pag nagkaroon ng positive patient, ma'am, meron pong positive patient dito. Sige, i-isolate mo na yung mga pamilya. Okay na yan. And most of the families that are being isolated are quarantined sa bahay lang. So ito yung mga masisikip na lugar. These are the informal settlers na magkakalapit yung bahay. I would like you to please take note of this. In Baguio, the average number of members per household, the average number of members per household is 6, because we will be using this figure and that figure, yung 130 po. Please take note of that. The number of contact tracing teams is 5. Sabi nila sa amin, 5. And it's a 5-man team. In short, 25 lang po sa kanila. And can you just imagine, yung kanilang daily infection is 130. Ang number of personnel trained on contact tracing is 25 only, and was trained by DOH. And no offense, Mel, but yung kanilang training is training for doctors and nurses. Of course, we cannot blame them because investigation is not their core competence. So they were trained by DOH to fill out the form. And probably some of the dynamics in DOH perspective of contact tracing. Can I just refer you to this, small note? In Baguio, the number of F1 contacts traced within 24 hours is an average of 37. In 24 hours, 37 po yung nadidetermine namin na high risk. In 24 hours, we'll be able to contact trace almost 70 to 80%. Lahat po ng mga contacts in 24 hours. Our record was that 82.5% in 12 hours. That's how confident our contact tracers are now. But look at them. 3 months ago, or more than 3 months ago, they were as confused. Kung din sila, buy-in was a big issue. They don't like to partner with the police. Iniisip nila it will only imperil their contact tracing operation. At na-intimidate sila sa police. Pero later on, nung talaga nagsama na sila, finally, sila mismo nagsasabi, hindi, kasi dapat samahan ako ng pulis. Hindi na ayaw na nilang lumakad kung wala kasamang pulis. And that's how confident they are. Yung partnership is very strong. They complement each other. Okay, using Baguio as a benchmark, looking at the number of cases daily in Cebu City, i-times lang po natin ang 37. In short, ang tinitingnan po natin na contact is around 4,810. And then here comes the number of swabs being done daily. Swab test, 400 to 500. Ang katotohanan ho niyan, 271 lang yan. Kita nyo yung laking gap. Ang laki po ng gap na yan. And then, tingnan nyo rin ho yung how do they conduct their contact tracing. They're only limiting it to the household members. So, 130 times 6, 780, assuming na talagang nako-cover nila yung 130, which I doubt. Ako personally, when I was talking to some of the doctors, sabi nila, sir, halos sa isang araw lang doon sa 130, siguro mga 30% or 25% lang ang talagang naayos na yun. Doon sa iba, sir, bahala na sila sa buhay nila. And one of the reasons for that, why is it that they have developed this kind of attitude? They were not incentivized. Their morale is not only low, it's very low. And they cannot feel leadership. And I will be explaining to that in this particular slide. Look at my observations. There's a sheer lack of contact tracers. Can you just imagine 25 personnel versus 100 cases daily? I mean, dito sa Baguio, halos isang case, meron po kaming mga 4 na contact tracer teams. Pero binago na po namin yung aming organization. We don't call them contact tracer teams. We call them interviewers. Yung mga mismo nag-interview. But I'll be mentioning that later on in succeeding slide. Their city personnel do not have training on cognitive interviewing. They are not well organized. Nakalat-kalat sila. In fact, one particular doctor mentioned to me, sabi niya, sir, noong unang first day namin doon, they were impressive. They were telling us that they have this kind of contact tracing capability. And they were out there to impress us. On their second day, when we sensed that something is wrong and we had a heart-to-heart talk, finally, they told the truth. Ang moral nila, napakababa. They're not well organized. Sabi nung isang kwan, sir, yung 5-month team na sinasabi nila, wala naman talaga sir yan. Ako na sir ang contact tracer. Ako na sir ang swabber. Ako pa sir ang social worker. Ginagawa ko pa sir yung trabaho sa opisina. Sir, pagod na kami. Tapos wala naman incentive sa amin. Sarili naming gastos lang. So that is practically what is happening or basically what is happening in Cebu City. Law enforcement investigators are not involved in contact tracing. In fact, ayaw hong i-share nung kanilang city health office yung kanyang record with the PNP. And there's lack of leadership. There's lack of direction and focus. Walang specific task. Walang direction coming from the health officer. And there's a lack of sense of urgency. Parang paano lang, every day they just go with the flow. They just go with the flow, amazingly. And there's no innovations or lack of innovations. Wala nag-iisip kung paano, how to make that. There are better ways of doing things, but they're not concerned with it. Lack of C4. Ano ibig sabihin po ng C4? Ito po yung isa sa pinaka-importanting element po ng crisis management or disaster management. Yung C4. It denotes communication, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. And finally, I mentioned to you, nagtataguhan po ng data, hindi po nire-reflect lahat. And that's the reason why decisions of the mayor are basically flawed because it is also based on flawed data. Previously, DILG came up with a contact tracing structure. And because of our own experience, kagabi po, when I was talking with the mayors of NCR, and together with Secretary Galvez, Secretary Ed Año, and Secretary Vince Sison, and Chairman MMDA Danny Lim, I mentioned to them that we have to radically change the city structure because the former structure is not responsive. So I came up with this city ecosystem. And that's where I spelled out or initiated yung mga components po ng ating contact tracing ecosystem. These are the interviewers, composed of health workers and investigators, a partnership. And then we have the analysts to work on the analytical tools. We have the encoders, and then we have the technical support. Importante po yung encoders, especially when you are now managing big data. No? Patulad po sa Kwan. Sa Cebu, alam niyo ba na 7,000 na yung case nila? Tinanong ko sa kanila, na-digitize na ba itong mga kwan nyo, mga information na nag-gather nyo? Ang sabi sa akin siguro sir. So pwede mo makita yung yung data collection tool nyo, yung database. Sabi nila, sir, wala kaming alam Hindi rin sir namin alam. Sir, baka doon po sa Operation Emergency Center. I went to the Emergency Operation Center nila. Sabi, sir, wala po kami niyan. In short, nasaan yung mga data na nakokolekta nyo? Sir, nandun po lahat sa health office. Nandun po nakafile lahat yung mga papel. So how can you conduct analysis, data analytics, if all of your data are in hard copy? Then, of course, we have the technical support and the community support teams coming from the BHERD. So please give me 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Medyo malahaba-haba na po. Pasensya na po kayo. So for contact tracing e-system, we have 3 components, major components. We have a data collection tool wherein all the information are gathered and encoded in your tablets or the cell phone nyo and immediately stored in the cloud para mas madali po ang retrieval and generation of report or any other types of graphics for analysis. Next is our GIS platform. And then yung ating pong analytical tool using our link analysis. This is a classic example of our data collection tool. It has 7 directories and 80 fields. So one particular positive patient, meron po siyang 80 na information na madiderive mo po ito. This is the back end of our data collection tool. It's sort of a spreadsheet. Dito po sa topmost na row, you can see the line-up po rito, naka-line up po rito yung all the information about a particular positive patient. Ito namang nasa leftmost column. Ito naman yung history, yung details of the subject, yung specimen results, yung link analysis. All you have to do is click it. This is a history of one particular patient. This is a classic case because this patient stayed or was confined in the hospital for 44 days. Every time na magkakaroon siya ng second swab test niya, lagi siya nagpa-positive. Ito na po yun. But during our meeting with WHO officials last weekend, 2 days po sila rito, they confirmed that yung ginawa po namin na 44 days, sobra-sobra na po yun. In fact, they confirmed that 11 days pa lang hindi na po infectious yung patient, maski na nagre-register pa rin siyang positive sa PCR test. This is the external dashboard. I say external because this can be viewed by the public. And for transparency, this is real time. They know what is happening every day. Ito po yun. And goes with it, yung web GIS. Nakikita po nila yung mga icons overlaid over a particular map. In this case po, ang ginagamit po namin mapa ay satellite map. Ito naman yung aming GIS platform. And this system, ang ginamit ko lang po rito yung Crime Information Research and Analysis System ng Philippine National Police. Instead of crime, ang nilalagay mo natin, if you remember, there's such thing as a crime mapping, ang nilagay po natin dito are COVID-19 cases. This system, I developed this system when I was the Regional Director of Police Regional Office Cordillera. It took me almost 2 years for the PNP to finally embrace this system and implement it nationwide when I was already head of the Directorate for Investigation Detective Management. Ito po yun. If you look at this icon, meron po these are symbols. Ito po, patient na namatay po yun. Ito po yung case no positive patient namin who died because of tuberculosis. Yung green and red, ito po yung positive pero naka-recover na. Yung yellow, these are suspected cases. Yung blue, these are probable cases. Meron din po itong yellow and green. Ito po yung mga suspected na natapos po yung quarantine. So basically po, nilalagay po namin para naka-recover na rin. So these are the meaning of those icons. So the GIS platform, you can actually capture, manipulate, analyze, manage all types of data, no? And then overlay it on the map. You'll be able to conduct geospatial analysis. Again, I would like to emphasize that word, geospatial analysis. Allows you to be able to overlay and visualize the extent of potential infection in one particular area. Ginagamit po namin ito for decision making, especially on lockdown. At tinitingnan po namin din, dito rin po namin yung extent ng infection sa isang particular na lugar. Itong system na to wala po sa PNP. So that they cannot visualize, sa Cebu pala, they cannot visualize it kung ano nangyayari sa buong island o sa buong syudad. Kumbaga, without visualization, there's no situational awareness. And again, because of that, decision making or decisions are flawed. So let me just show you a short video of our GIS platform. So every time, so you can overlay yung mapa po ng barangay, you can overlay all other facilities, pati ho health centers, pwede nyo ilagay dyan lahat. Then every time you click a particular, pwede rin yung i-isolate yung data para gusto nyo rin ipakita yung mga positive cases. These are layers. Kaya pwede nyo paghihiwa-hiwalay yung data and overlay it on the map. You can use different types of map. If you look at it, yung mga panurian, every time you click, may lumalabas po ng mga attributes. May nakikita rin kayo mga pula, these are heat maps. You're using certain types of algorithms to be able to generate mga hotspots dito. So, pati yung eksaktong location sa bahay, nakikita nyo. No? Madidetermine nyo po. Pag nilockdown ho namin, sineshade po namin ng opaque na red. So, this is a very powerful tool for geospatial analysis. Next is our link analysis tool. And this link analysis tool, ito po yung sa PNP. When I was in CIDG, I developed this system, but it has a very strong core component, a program that was developed by a very famous na company po sa pagdating po sa IT. But I cannot mention that at the moment. This system allows analysts to be able to establish relationships, networks, and patterns. Ito po yung nagagawa niya. No? Contact tracing is not just simply linking one person to another person. Hindi po yan. You have to establish the story. And this system establishes the story. This system, tells you what happened between every time, as much as possible per interaction between contacts. So, look at this. Tingnan nyo itong data na ito. Tingnan nyo, how can human brain process this? Itong nasa taas po, timeline po yan. Itong parang ruler. Itong orange boxes, ito po yung mga onset ng symptoms. At yung green naman, ang pan po yan is yung date of discharge. But tingnan nyo po yung mga apex. These are actually positive patients. I will show you a brief video of this system and its capability. Nakita nyo, if you start zooming in, makikita nyo na po yung lahat ng details about that particular patient. And then it's linked to certain individuals or contacts. Ito pong nakikita nyo square na to, ito po yung mga, it denotes activities, it denotes establishment. Diyan po namin na-discover na may mga grocery stores pala kami na doon na yung source of infection. Meron din po kaming na-determine na certain types of activities yun din po ang mga sources of infection o naging mode of vehicle for infection po. Yan po yung system na yan. So it's a bit confusing for people who are newly, who just probably view this kind of system. Pero if you're into it, then you learn na simple lang pala. Okay, this was our command center. We put this up. This is a storage room na ang dumi-dumi. Then we need to put up an operation center temporary. Ganito po yung ginawa namin. Then 3 weeks ago, we decided to renovate it. Ito na po yung itsura niyan ngayon. We spent about 1.7 million for this. And the WHO delegates were really impressed when they visited this center last Saturday. Okay, maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Thank you for listening. Please bear with me. Pasensya na po kayo.
Thank you, Mayor Magalong. We are indeed very much interested in your presentation. Thank you for all the sharing that you gave. Just to very briefly highlight some key points that was mentioned. The discussion about the principles underlying incident command system was very enlightening, hopefully for much of those who listen to us, especially the LGUs. There was also discussion on the importance of strong collaboration between law enforcement and the health authorities, that the coordination should be seamless. I think that's also a very important point in your presentation. And of course, the skill that is necessary to undertake cognitive interviewing. So I think that was also a very important discussion that was given in your sharing. And of course, towards the end of the presentation, among the other things that you're showing, it also shows how big data can really help in planning. So the use of GIS, the use of data, the use of data collection tools. I know that everyone already has in place some of these in their own ways, but the case of Baguio City and the things that we shared, I hope would help enlighten how else can we do better in what we're doing. Now, as we move on to the question and answer of this webinar, again, I remind everybody to keep on posting your questions in the chat of FB Live and in the Q&A box of Zoom. So we will move on to that, but just to again put a context to the Q&A, we had two presentations from leaders from very different geographic contexts. So the island of Alabat is a coastal area. Baguio is in a mountain ecosystem, but still both are confronted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And what we want to understand as viewers of this webinar is to understand how, even if same problems are shared, different communities, particularly in the lens of local chief executives, are they addressing this very crucial problem that we are in right now? That we're able to understand too how within the resources, how within the personal context of the local chief executives, these are being addressed. So I start with a question that is posed to both our honorable mayors. So the first question is, how do you intend to sustain the programs implemented during this ECQ and GCQ to support your constituents after the pandemic? What support is necessary aside from financial support from national government and private organizations? So the question is about sustaining what has been initiated beyond the ECQ, GCQ, other than from the national government and private organizations. So the question is addressed to both mayors, please. So who would want to answer first?
Una muna yung senior.
Mayor Mesa, nag-defer po si Mayor Bagalong sa inyo. Mayor Mesa?
Ay mawala-wala. Pakiulit po.
Okay. Ang tanong po is, how do you intend to sustain the programs implemented during the ECQ to support your constituents? And this is aside from the financial supports coming from national government and private organizations. So it's about sustaining the support beyond the ECQ, GCQ, sir.
At tulad po ng sinabi ko sa aking briefing, and per guidance of the national government interagency task force, the agriculture sector should be open. Yung farming is open. So, katulad po ng bayan namin, it's an agricultural municipality, and therefore, hindi po namin isinarado yung economic activity in terms of agriculture. So, nandun pa rin po yung pagtatanim, nandun pa rin po yung pangisda, but just the same, everybody is required to observe at least the minimum requirements like wearing of face mask, social distancing, and yung pong hindi magpapaikot-ikot sa kung saan-saan. So, very cooperative po ang mga barangay officials, and pati po yung aming PNP, marami pong hinuhuli at pinagmumulta namin for that. At yun naman pong sabi ko nga, yung magbigay kami ng nutritious na pagkain ay mapapalakas natin ang immune system ng tao. And that is one way also to combat coronavirus, COVID-19, by strengthening our body immune system. So, yun po, may tuloy-tuloy lang yung mga economic activities. Okay naman po, while observing health protocols, I think it will go a long way. And of course, any symptom, kung may maramdaman, dapat impormahan kagad ang barangay health emergency response teams o magpunta sa hospital. So, I think yun po ang kailangan.
Yes, sir. So still it revolves around agriculture. So patuloy po yung support sa agriculture sector. Mayor Bagalong, please, your response.
Yes, ang laki po ng impact nitong situation sa Ciudad ng Baguio, considering the fact na we are a tourism-based industry. So nawala po yung tourism. In fact, last year, our GDP was about 7.3. And every time we close our borders to tourists, ang bumababa po ng by as much as 2% ang aming GDP every month. So we're expecting probably before the end of this year, ang aming GDP is somewhere near 4% na lang. Ang laki. Well, we're expecting a loss of about 3.75 billion in gross receipts. So, ang laki ng impact sa mga business sector dito, especially those in the category of MSME.
Okay.
Primarily micro and small. Ang ginawa ho namin ngayon, nag-set aside po kami ng 100 million initially to support yung aming micro and small lang. Dahil nung tinignan namin yung mga medium, lumalabas na karamihan pala ng medium, yung mga Jollibee pala at McDonald's, medium pala yan. So I don't think they need the money. So nandun po kami nakakonsentrate. And we are now partnering with DTI. Kasi because it served as a lesson to us. Sometime in early 2000, merong stimulus package, walang bumalik na pera. Why? Dahil karamihan ng mga binigyan ng suporta, political consideration. So akala nila, pag binigay, sarili na nila. But this time, we're making sure that yung pera, may balik nila, walang interest for the next 2 years, pero at least may balik nila para pakinabangan ng iba. So that's an initial 100 million na stimulus package sa kanila. Despite the fact that we see a lot of suffering, we see losses, we see hardships, marami namang silver linings itong COVID-19, right? Dito sa Baguio, gumanda ang hangin. We are the number 3 we are in the number 3 worst air quality in the country, next to Cebu. Manila is number 1. With that, we took this opportunity. Yes, we took that opportunity now to improve our public transport system in itong emission of toxic, gas. So iyan, in-implement namin yung pinag-usapan namin with the United Nations Development Fund plan. This was supposed to be implemented next year, pero in-implement na namin ngayon yung local public transport rerouting plan para mabawasan yung gas emission. And we're going to sustain that. Second is have a digital governance project. We have a digital transformation program towards digital governance and digital economy. We fast track it. What we call I'll show you a
Sir. Break sandali si sir. Ayan. Papakita lang si sir.
Sorry. Last year we came up with this, Baguio in my pocket, a program last year. Pero nahinto, and because it requires, investment in digitalization like fiber optics. Pero the good news is we're pursuing it. In fact, it gave us the opportunity to work closely with private companies. Nagle-lay down na sila dito ng one. They're now laying fiber optic cables dito.
Wow.
Yes, in the entire city of Baguio. Second is we will be able to pursue our smart city system. It will be the first smart city system in the entire country at the initial cost of 200 million, and I hope that the construction will start sometime in September. Why are we pursuing this? Because we would like to emphasize that there is a need for us to have a contactless and cashless transaction. Just this morning, finally, we were able to sign the memorandum of agreement with another company, private company, for a cashless transaction. Ibig sabihin yan, everything can be all transaction can emanate using your cell phone or a card. Pati pagbayad, kasi marami po kaming mga drivers, mga billing clerks, mga cashiers na nagkaroon ng sakit dahil sa pagtanggap ng pera, sukli. It became a vehicle for transmission ng disease na yan. So yun po, yung digital transformation. Isa yun sa pinakamalaking silver lining na nakita mo namin, opportunity during this COVID-19. Thank you po.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. At least what we're seeing here right now is that the LGUs under the leadership of the two mayors are really getting ahead, whatever the challenges we are in right now. There are two specific questions that you would like to pose to Mayor Mesa, please. Pagsunurin ko na lang po. One is, hindi ba nanggugulo ang NPA? And the other question is, paano nyo daw dinideal yung mga pasaway? So I think this is common in many LGUs, and it will be enlightening to know how you are dealing with this, sir. Mayor Mesa, please.
Una po, tungkol sa NPA, they tried to come, but nakikipagtulungan po ang ating mga nasa barangay, and so immediately naman nag-respond ang army, and they hinabol-habol sila, and so tumakbo rin sila, and yan naman po mga takot yan mo yan pagka sila ang hinahabol. So yun po, nung hinabol na sila, takbo sila kagad. Pagdating naman po sa pasaway, simple lang po, we just make use of the rules. Kung ano po yung ordinansa, ay pinapataw po namin katulad ng mga hindi nag-wear ng face mask, naglalakad. Ay kahit ako po ay ako'y nahuhuli rin. Hindi lang barangay, tanod, hindi lang pulis, kahit po ako nahuhuli at kine-question ko sila, bakit kayo hindi nagsusuot? So ganun po ang sitwasyon. Sa mga pasaway, we make use of the legal rules for them to follow. Pagka po nagmamulta na, ay hindi na marami ng hindi magbabayolate.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Mesa. I transition now to question posed to Mayor Magalong. Please, same question. How do you deal with pasaway? Plus, yung next question po doon, did you consult with anyone on building up Baguio City systems, specifically on data analysis? Mayor Magalong, please.
Pagting ko muna yung pangalawang sagot. We continue to work closely with other analysts. Hindi naman porket galing kami sa PNP, hindi porket we invented or we crafted the systems or we developed the systems, perfect na kami, nakaya na namin. No, we're not. We continue to work with other specialists, other analysts, especially on the aspect of data analytics. I worked closely before with a very famous na doctor natin, si Dr. Lachon, on how to analyze data. Our epidemiologists are also good analysts, and I constantly consult with them to be able to determine yung mga certain indexes, ano ibig sabihin nito, yung mga values na ganito. With regards to yung mga pasaway, sometimes when you are a mayor, we always say, I would like to be respected. But during crisis, you would rather, siguro, tama kami dalawa ni Sir Mesa, we would rather be feared than respected. Anyway, the respect will come later. It will naturally come later. This is the time for us to come up with a lot of unpopular decisions. No, but based on the principle of doing what is right for the city. Hindi na po namin titingnan kung it will impact our re-election or it will impact our voters base. Hindi na po namin iniisip yan. And never po namin iniisip yan. Ang tinitingnan lang po namin at iniisip lang po namin, we simply have to do what is right for the city.
Okay, sir. I think we can entertain two more questions. One question that I can address to both is it possible for DILG to recommend a sort of protocol on how to address pandemics based on the experiences of your LGUs? Siguro, sir, we can relate this dun sa incident command system na initiatives for LGU. I'm not sure if you follow the same ICS. Should there be a protocol to more or less have the same ICS across LGUs? So we're a bit short of time, so I'd like to encourage the two mayors to please try to be as direct in your replies as possible, please, sirs. Thank you. Mayor Mesa.
Meron pong ito pong incident command system, meron po tayong crisis management manual. And magkasama kami ni Mayor Magalong when we were formulating that manual. And so, maganda po ito. And even in Quezon City, during the time of Mayor Benguet, tinrain na rin po ang mga barangay sa incident command system. Napakalaga po, lalo na sa municipal level, sa barangay level, yung incident command system. Because yung pong incident, bago maging crisis, ay nasosolve. Dahil yung crisis, pag napabayaan mo, nagiging disaster. So, doon pa lamang po sa incident, dapat ay ma-address na. And the first that can handle the situation there is the barangay. So, katulad po, halimbawa, katulad ng COVID case. So, isang insidente lang eh, katulad ho nung nangyari rin sa amin. Imagine, from 100, from one incident na nagkaroon kami ng COVID, immediately, we have to put on a strict quarantine or isolation 148 families from one incident. So you can just imagine kung sabi ko kung wala kaming protocol na diretso muna sa ospital, ang mga nanggagaling sa ospital at o yung mga nanggagaling sa positive cases area ay mag-quarantine muna sila. Ay napakalaking bagay po yun. Dahil ito po mayroon sa amin, kung yung aming first positive patient, kung siya ay umuwi sa kanilang bahay, binisita, siyempre galing may sakit, umuwi, normal po sa atin, bibisitahin ng mga kamag-anak, mga kaibigan, mga kaklase, mga kapitbahay. Ay kung yung lahat pong yun ay dumating, you can just imagine ang dami ng magiging problema. Ilan lahat ang maapektuhan. Ay ito nga ho, isa lang. We have to put on isolation or quarantine 148 families from that single incident. So napakaganda po ng contact tracing na develop din ni Mayor Magalong. Sa amin pong contact tracing same principle din. Kukunti lang tao namin dito, kaya mga whiteboard lang po. 6 na whiteboard yung ginamit namin dito. Just to put in map. Of course, may computer din kami at para makita namin kung ilalockdown ba namin ang barangay or sitio because it is on the map. So may nagtawag nga po sa akin, ba't hindi nyo i-lockdown yan? Ay meron na palang positive case do sa barangay na gano'n. Ay sabi ko, isa lang naman yan at kay nasa sa hospital na. So technology really should be make use of, especially nowadays that ang dami po natin. We had more than 100 million people. So ayun po, make use of technology.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So may I ask Mayor Magalong, please, to kindly respond to the same question?
I'm aligned with the views of Mayor Mesa. Kaming dalawa nagsama during the drafting of that national crisis management manual. And second is, alam niyo, DILG naman, mayroong mga na-doctrinize na yan. May mga issuances sila regarding incidentals, regarding local crisis management, disaster response, na-doctrinize na po lahat yan. Pero ang trabaho po ng local chief executive is to make sure that this system are applicable sa kanilang environment. Sometimes we have to tweak it. Meron lang kaming konting babaguhin para lang it will suit our needs and our requirements.
Sir, quick rejoinder lang sa case ng Baguio kasi may tanong dito about the cost to set up yung technology na yan. So, could you share how much more likely this will cost?
You'll probably not you'll probably be surprised if I say it's free because the system is in the Philippine National Police. It's just very unfortunate na marami na pong nakalimot because alam niyo naman, embracing technology is leadership driven. Kung yung leaders ay hindi walang interest sa technology, subordinates follow. Everybody follows down the line. So kailangan talagang i-reorient mo. Can you just imagine, yung katulad yung binigay kong link analysis, we invested 100 million. And during our meeting with General Archie Gamboa 2 months ago, when I went to Krame and presented itong technology na to, first thing that he asked me, sir, magkano? Saan namin mabibili yan? Sabi ko, Archie, yung system nandyan sa opisina ninyo, nandyan sa ITMS. It's a 100 million system.
Sir, that is a very interesting answer because with your new position now as to head the National Contact Tracing Program, then perhaps this system can be more or less moved forward with the other LGUs. A comment actually in one of the boxes is that does the IATF has it already considered recommending the adoption of technology? So we hope that with you on board that national program, then this would benefit a lot of LGUs who need it the most. So balik po ako kay Mayor Mesa. Meron pong pumasok kasi na tanong dito. And I'm abridging some of the questions. Ano po? So we mentioned a lot of support to the agriculture sector because the LGU of Alabat is basically an agricultural municipality. Ang tanong po is what are other livelihoods in the municipality that are negatively impacted by the pandemic and what are the coping strategies being undertaken? So ang nabanggit po kasi kanina ay yung coconut. Yeah, I think coconut yung na-mention kanina. Maybe ang ano lang is, are there other commodities being produced there and are adversely affected and what are being done to assist that sector?
Ang kailangan po talaga ay magkaroon ng value adding. Yung mga raw material na napoproduce sa isang locality katulad sa aming bayan, nagtayo po kami ng mga local economic enterprise. Kaya nga po, katulad ng cocoa sugar, marami po natutulungan dyan. Yung pong aming mga ngarit, dati ang bubong ng bahay nila ay pawid, ngayon yero. Dati naglalakad, ngayon nakamotorsiklo. So kumikita po sila ng maayos because nagkaroon ng value adding. Ngayon po naglunsad kami ng village level coconut oil mill. And so marami pong almost 300 na kababaihan yung natutulungan ngayon. Gumagawa sila ng langis. Imagine po yung nyog, ginagawang kopra, dadalhin sa tawid, gagawing oil, ibabalik sa amin at ibebenta sa amin oil. Eh sabi ko, bakit ganun? Gumawa na tayo ng langis dito sa ating bayan at paano na kagad natin yung langis? Hindi yung marami pang ikot. So, yung iba na kailangan gawing kopra, itawid natin. Pero yung pangailangan nating langis, ay pwede naman natin ma-produce dito sa atin. Nagkaroon na tayo ng trabaho, nagkaroon pa tayo ng additional na nakita, nagkaroon ng value adding. Because for example, ang job po sa amin ay, ang kilo ay 5 pesos. So, sa 1 litro po ng cooking oil, ay yung 50 pesos na worth na nyug. Yan po ay magkakaroon ng, makakapag-produce sila ng worth 120 pesos na langis. So, nagkaroon kagad ng value adding na more than half. At yan po ang raw material sa marami sa amin nyug. Kami po sa bayan lang namin, we are consuming 8,000 liters of cooking oil every month. So, yung mga ganun po ba, we should encourage establishment of local economic enterprises to help our farmers, process them here, and help them also in the marketing.
Yes, sir.
That will help a lot.
Thank you, sir. So you mentioned yung value adding talaga, and it's very important so to create employment and income generating activities for the locals. I think I'll push for one last and final question. It's 3:45. We should be ending the Q&A here. Pero meron pong gusto kong i-toss na question. Now, for those who are listening to us via Facebook and Zoom po, lahat po ng questions na nasa chat ay kino-consolidate and we will be forwarding this to the two mayors for them to know both commentaries and questions. But for the last question po, quick answers from the mayor please. I think this is very relevant still considering na may mga places na hindi pa talaga nakabalik yung mga residents at very fluid pa rin. So ang tanong po talaga ay, did the Balik Probinsya program of the national government affect your actions against COVID? And siguro ang more important, para future-oriented siya, how do you deal yung sa mga Balik Probinsya na actions? So quickly po, Sir Mayor Mesa, please answer the question.
Alam niyo po, may pumunta nga sa akin na isang tao, sabi sa akin, Mayor, anong maibibigay mong trabaho sa akin? Ako galing sa Manila, driver ako doon. Ang sabi ko sa kanya, walang problema. Marami tayong nyog. You join the Baileys level coconut oil mill. And so, magkikita ka kahit papaano. Dahil gagawa ka ng ano. And that is what is abundant sa amin, yung nyog. So, sabi nga po, hindi ako mamumroblema sa balik probinsya. Because marami kami dito nyog. Magtatrabaho lang sila, huwag lang silang mamimili ng trabaho. But dito nga po sa amin, sabi ko, wala pong nagreklamo na sila nagutom. Because napoproduce namin yung mga pangailangan namin. At yung corporate farming na inulunsad po namin. So yung mga underutilized or idle lands ay binuo po namin ng mga grupo ng mga tao na magpa-farming. And tutulungan po ng lokal na pamahalaan because sa land preparation po sa farming, naibaba po namin ang cost of production from 7,000 to 1,000 pesos per hectare. Because kami ang munisipyo na nag-provide ng makinarya, ang gastos lang nila ay fuel. Pagdating naman po sa post-harvest, ay meron kaming nabigay na diin na harvester. So yung pong palay halimbawa namin, yung for 1 hectare na palayan, nakasave po ng 50% ang farmer. Na-reduce ang kanilang cost by 10,000 per hectare. And so, ayun po. And then, itong marami pong pwedeng gawin. Ang kinakailangan lang po ay tulungan natin na magkaroon ng value adding at marketing ang ating mamamayan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mayor Magalong, please, your response to the question.
Notice, maski na mayor kami dalawa, our cities or our LGUs or locality have peculiarities. Ano? Iba yung situation ni Sir Mesa, iba rin yung situation ko. Unang-una, yung balik probinsya does not apply to us because ang sa amin is kung pwede yung mga taga rito ang babalik sa probinsya because we're now overpopulated. But nevertheless, meron pa rin umaakyat. Marami yun. We have a returning Baguio residents o mga OFWs at yung mga stranded individuals sa ibang mga probinsya na umaakyat po ng Baguio at naghahanap po ng trabaho. But they should understand, as I keep on saying, na ang tourism, ang industry po namin rito is tourism-based. So most of the time, umaakyat po rito talagang walang trabaho. Pero one good thing, sabi ko nga, meron nung silver lining. Ano silver lining dito? Dumadami po ang aming mga chef. Dahil karamihan sa kanila matututo magluto at magbenta online. So yun po siguro ang isa sa mga naging isang very famous dito na industry ngayon, yung online bakery, tapos nagbebenta po sila. At second po yung delivery. Pero talagang mahirap po talaga maghanap ng trabaho, especially people coming from the other provinces going up to Baguio. If you ask me, I would admittedly say na uunahin ko muna yung nandito na sa Baguio before sila, kasi marami po akong naghahanap po ng trabaho ngayon dito sa syudad ng Baguio.
Thank you very much, Mayor Magalong. So, indeed, this afternoon, we have received a lot of insightful messages from our two local chief executives. It's very clear that the two, Baguio City and Alabat, are benefiting a lot from the wealth of experience that the two mayor has. And dun nga po lumalabas sa comment, all this wealth of experience and technical knowledge by the two mayors are really leverage for making it at least more efficient in undertaking all these things that we have to do under time constraints, resource constraints. It's really challenging for leadership. But it's also very clear that's coming out that at the community level, where organizations, where communities, where people work together and cooperate, many things can be done. And it is the hope of this webinar series nga to mine all these lessons and going ons in the different contexts of LGUs so that others may be able to pick up nuggets of lessons dito sa mga karanasan na to. Kasi maraming karanasan, hindi lang yung mga napapanood natin sa TV, nakikinig natin sa news. So we hope that in our own little way, this webinar series will be able to contribute in that puzzle and help us all move forward. Hindi pa po yan closing remarks. At this point in the program, Mayor Mesa, Mayor Magalong, maraming salamat po. The College of Public Affairs would like to share with you. I'll read the contents of the certificates that we're giving as a token of our appreciation. So I'll just read once. So the Center for Strategic Planning and Policy Studies, College of Public Affairs and Development, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Honorable Fernando Mesa of Alabat, Quezon, and Benjamin Magalong of Baguio City for serving as resource persons in the webinar entitled D Etat, Taking Over the Pandemic, of the Walking the Talk CPAf CSPPS webinar series on LGU governance and policy on July 13, 2020, College of Public Affairs and Development, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Laguna. Signed, Berlin M. Paunlagi, Director of CSPPS, and Rolando T. Bello, Dean of CPAf. So before I turn over to Director Paunlagi for the synthesis and closing remarks of this webinar, once again, Mayor Mesa and Mayor Magalong, thank you so much for sharing your leadership experiences during this crucial time in our history. Not only do you carry the torch in this time of darkness, but you are both living testimonies of service for others even after retirement. Thank you and God bless you more. At this point, I wish to call on Director Merlin Paunlagi for her closing message.
Thank you very much, Professor Amit. I'd like to thank Honorable Mayor Fernando Mesa and Honorable Mayor Magalong for sharing their experience in responding to the pandemic. I know the participants have been very appreciative of what they've heard because of the numerous accolades that we have received. Your experience once again highlights the importance of information, and not just information, but quality information. But information is information until you use it and you share it, and also being transparent. I was really listening intently on how the case of Cebu was done. Mayor Magalong, kayo po sana again ulit para akong broken record ay estudyante namin para mapakita kung paano talaga gumagawa ng research. And saludo po ako sa inyo. Kay Mayor Mesa po naman, knowing what is in the community shows how you responded to the challenge of COVID. Nakita po natin yung inyong ginagawa na innovation sa agriculture sector. Even before po na ma-invite namin kayo, we have heard so much of your accomplishments doon po sa Alabat, Quezon. So we really would like to visit at Quezon. So, dalawa lang din po ang gusto kong ipahatid to the participants. One is being innovative. Innovative in the sense that you're really thinking of something to respond with the use of technology, with the use of information. And the other one is repurposing, which was explained to us by Mayor Magalong, and Mayor Mesa was part of on their the use of GIS. It was not really intended for COVID patients, but also in trying to plot where are the criminals. And we found that it has become very useful. That even yung nandun sa mismong PNP did not realize that it is already existing. Both mayors have very clear presentations on what they have done. They really walk the talk, not only during the pandemic, but also in the other of the local when there is the other question. So once again, thank you very much for sharing your time. You are both busy. but you have accepted our invitation. Just listening to Secretary Roque at lunchtime, he called Mayor Magalong as the czar sa ano po tayo, sa contact tracing. Okay. So once again, thank you very much, Dean Bello, for the support you have extended to us in having this series to Professor Mayo Grace Amit para po siya inaccept niya ang aming invitation to become the moderator. CSPPS staff, Haji, Dr. Eileen Mamino, Danica, who's been preparing all the materials, Maren, Francis, Tessa, and Maris, ang aming pong admin staff, KMO staff, Ruth and Stoics, ITC Sir Dao, and all those who provided assistance, and to you all participants who have been actively participating through your messages and chats and to the Q&A. Salamat po, and we expect you again in our third series, which we will going to announce soon. Salamat po ng marami at magandang hapon.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So for the rest of our online participants, just a reminder, accomplish the evaluation form on or before July 15. The links to the evaluation form can be found on the screen. So it's also posted in the chat section of Zoom and the comment section of Facebook Live. E-certificates will be sent to your emails within